So welcome everyone for today's session. Also, again today we have a question, this time from Ophélie. So also she is referring to the last blog post about the basic meditation practice. So she says, "Thank you for your post. I have a question about the one technique only. After your retreat, which was very empowering for me, I did the 10-day Vipassana retreat in Singapore, which I did like very much in terms of purpose, message, and clarity of the practice. I then joined one-day Vipassana. They organize here once a month. Now my pregnant belly is too big, I'll have to stop. Without teacher or guideline though. They also say to not mix techniques. But then I'm reading Mindfulness, Bliss and Beyond. This is the book from Ajahn Brahm, which I highly recommend to read. And page 25, it is said that Vipassana and Samatha are two facets of the same process. I don't really understand what it really means in terms of practice. Does it mean your practice and Vipassana practice are actually the same broad practice? Can I digress then from the strict Vipassana technique, breath in nose area, then body, then metta? Thank you for your help." Okay, that's a very good question. It's also a very famous question. There's lots of discussion in Buddhism about, is the practice of Samatha different from Vipassana? Are these two facets of the same? Are they one? Are they to be practiced separately, differently? Are they leading to the same results? So there's a whole lot of confusion about these two facets of Buddhist practice. So maybe to discuss it in terms of the threefold path that the Buddha has taught, which is the essence of all practice of Buddhism, which is sila, samadhi, panya, the practice of morality and virtue, so abstaining from negative actions and cultivating positive actions, virtuous qualities. And now we come to the second, which is the practice of samadhi, which is the practice of samatha, means calm abiding. The word samatha means calm abiding, or calming, stilling the mind. And the practice of samatha leads to the pinnacle of samadhi, which is a unified, completely calm state of mind. This is the second training. And the third training is the training of panya, or the training of wisdom, of insight. So many people would then say the practice of Vipassana kind of falls into that third category, and then they see those three facets of the path as three kind of different steps or three trainings that we go through, like one by one. First you start with morality, then you do some samadhi, and then in the end you do some panya. Okay? So this is the usual idea of these three trainings that people have, that they're kind of three separate entities that have nothing much to do with one another. These three trainings, however, they are relating to one another and they are needing one another. So the practice of Vipassana, which means clear seeing, the practice of Samatha, which means calm abiding, are supporting one another, they are strengthening one another, they're enabling one another. They cannot go without one another. There have been a lot of practices at the time of the Buddha when he was teaching that were samatha oriented, that were calm abiding. So many practices, even nowadays still in this world, are mostly samatha practice. They're mostly practicing to still the mind. Most people who practice meditation aim for a quiet mind. Okay, so that's the most popular technique of meditation in this world, is samatha practice. It is calming the mind. So if we leave it at that, then we are not completing the path. We're not fully understanding what the Buddha has actually taught. The message of the Buddha goes far beyond just only calming the mental fabrications. It goes far beyond that. So it goes very much towards transcending this world, transcending suffering completely. Now when you practice just samatha, what will happen is that the world comes to a standstill. Your experience of the world comes to a complete halt. So the first thing in step 1 that comes to a halt is the fabrication of future and past. You're letting go of future and past, you become present, right? We all know that step 1 by now. Now the step 2, what we are letting go of, is a bit of a more complexity, is that inner voice, that constant chatter and that constant talk, which is a big part of our experience of the world. It is this inner talk, the judgments, the labels, the stories we tell ourselves, about other people, about other groups of people, etc. When that comes to an end, a big part of our world comes to an end. When that stops, it stops in stage 2. So then the multiplicity of the mind wandering about, like looking at different things, for example, here the breath, there the feet, then some sound out there, then there is a smell, then there is a thought. So there's this continuous oscillation of the mind, of your attention going now here, now there. Now when that comes to an end, another big part of your world comes to an end. That means everything in stage 3 and stage 4, everything but the breath is going away, is fading out of your experience. That's a whole lot of stuff. Think about it. So when you're practicing samatha, you're cultivating a state of mind which is very single-pointed, deeply restful, very blissful in nature, and without any vibration. This means your mind does not vibrate. It doesn't produce. And usually our minds are producing constantly, even at night time, right? When we dream, our minds are creating, they're fabricating, they're producing stuff. Now what happens if that stops? It's very difficult to imagine for most of us, because that requires quite a deep, substantial state of meditative attainment. When we go deep into our practice and the movement of the mind stops, what then happens at this stage is also the senses, the 5 senses which connect you to the world, are also fading out of existence. This is nothing too special. It happens actually every night when you go to sleep. Your 5 senses are shutting down, but the 6th sense is still operative. The mind is still operating, isn't it? So here in samatha meditation, the mind is calming down and the senses are calming down. Everything is completely calming down. It means your entire world, the universe, is fading out of your scope of perception. It doesn't exist for you anymore. You don't know where you're sitting. You don't know what time it is. You don't know how long you've been sitting for. You don't even care how long you're sitting. There is no intent, no striving forward, no looking backwards. There's just this moment. For you, time is coming to an end. Space is coming to an end. The only thing that is left in these states is a very still point of awareness. However, I cannot go too deep into these states because I'm not too familiar with these states. It's very deep meditation. Now this is the path of samatha, calming the mind. It is very necessary, and here's the reason why. It empowers the knowing quality of the mind. It shows you exactly how the world comes into being and how it fades. That is very necessary for deep vipassana practice, for the deep practice of truly understanding how this world is actually operating, how suffering, how stress comes into existence and how it fades. There's only one way to know it really deeply, and this is samatha practice. So with samatha, you're creating a powerful mind. And that powerful mind then is sent out with the intent to investigate truth, to have a look at the way things are, to understand the mechanics of stress, to understand how stress comes to an end. That then is the job of clear seeing, of vipassana. We're observing things based on the three characteristics. We're looking at the impermanence of everything. So for example, at the impermanence of thoughts. When your mind is becoming very still, not much going on, then all of a sudden there is a thought. Like for example, the thought, I am really angry at my colleague. Like let's say that thought pops up in your mind. All of a sudden, your mind has been completely empty and still, peaceful, happy, blissful. And all of a sudden there is this thought arising out of this emptiness. There's this creation happening of the mind. I'm really angry at my colleague. You suddenly remember your colleague. There's an image of the face of your colleague, and then with that thought there comes the anger, there's suddenly an emotion, and you see all that clearly. Here is where vipassana comes in, the function of vipassana. You're seeing it clearly. Without getting involved in it, without having an agenda, you clearly observe thoughts are like this. And as you see the thought arising, you wait a little bit, then it passes. And then again there is this silence of the mind. Just blissful awareness, an empty knowing space. And out of that empty knowing space, again, after a while, all of a sudden there's another fabrication arising. The world comes in and out of existence. Now this is how you combine the practice of samatha and vipassana. The more deep your samatha practice goes, the more deep is the resultant insight in vipassana practice. So they're not really two different things, but they're empowering one another. They're helping each other. This is the way we should see it. And also the way we should see it is coming from our own practice. For a beginner in meditation, it is of primary importance to create a wholesome lifestyle, to abandon all negativity, to cultivate positivity, and to do a lot of meditative practice. So you're cultivating the stillness of your mind. You're giving the knower strength. You're empowering the knowing quality of the mind by constantly coming back to a still point. That is right effort. Or making effort, that's a part of the Eightfold Noble Path. It is right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration or right samadhi. So these are the three last facets of the Eightfold Noble Path. Right effort, it means applying the mind properly, bringing the mind back to its object, holding it with its object. Maybe better to say resting into the object. Holding it with its object is a bit of it's easy to misunderstand. So people become very tense. They try to hold their breath or they hold the meditation object. It's not about really holding with tension. It's about relaxing into the breath. This is proper samatha practice. You relax into the meditation object. You're making friends with your breath. If the breath is your enemy that you have to kind of defeat in the battle of meditation, then you're not getting far with that. That's for sure. You have to make friends with your breath. Very friendly attitude. And see that very friendly attitude towards your breath here, that would be metta. That's the function of kindness, of loving care and attention, of friendliness, of goodwill. We're having goodwill towards the breath. One of the 5 obstacles to meditation practice is ill will, vyapada. Ill will means that you're having ill will towards your meditation object, for example. You don't really want to stay with the breath. It's a drag to stay with the breath. You'd rather kind of have your mind wander and go shopping and think of the past, contemplate the future. That means we're having ill will towards the breath. We're not really comfortable with the breath. That's why it's so important at the beginning of the practice to introduce the whole thing with a smile. Breathing in, breathing out, smiling. That's important. It's not just some like tiny itsy bitsy addition to the meditation practice that's not really significant. The smile is very important. It shows with what kind of attitude you are meditating. It's a friendly attitude, soft, kind, friendly towards yourself, not unforgiving and harsh, but friendly, open, soft, warm. You're looking at yourself with a smile. You're approaching your breath with a smile, kind and friendly. Like this, you will have much more success in your meditation practice. You're approaching your breath like a good friend. Try that. You experiment with this idea, with this form of perception, perceiving your breath as a friend. Your meditation will get much easier like that. So resting into this friendly attitude with your breath empowers the mind and empowers a particular aspect of the mind, namely the knowing quality of your mind, awareness. We're using a whole lot of sati, a whole lot of mindfulness in this samatha practice. Bringing our attention, applying the mind to its object again and again. Showing the mind, look, here you can rest. Rest in the breath. Or rest here, rest in the present moment. There is nothing for you to do, no appointments, no stress. You can just rest right now. You put all your burdens down for 30 minutes, 1 hour. You don't have to bother about anything. You don't have to worry about your life at all. You can put everything down for a little while. Worrying and so forth is quite a strong habit, right? In meditation it becomes very obvious just how addicted we are to worrying, how difficult it is to let go of these things. Even though they're so painful, we're kind of addicted to holding on to them all the time. That makes it difficult. That's what making it difficult. Our addiction to noise makes it difficult to abandon noise. Our interest in noise. We're very interested in noise. Much more interested than in silence. Think of a cinematic movie. You go to the cinema, you watch a movie, and think of the movie without any problem. A movie without any problem in it. There's no problem. It's not a movie, right? It's boring. People wouldn't enjoy that one. There's just no problem from the beginning to the end. No tension at all. It's not a movie. It's not interesting. You see, we're very addicted to drama. We're addicted to tension. And so in meditation, of course, that plays out, right? We sit down and then we are very addicted to this tension creation all the time. And you can observe it for yourself. It's nothing that you have to believe in at all. It's something to be observed right here, right now. We are addicted to tension. We're addicted to drama. And so it's difficult to relax. That's the only difficulty here. Some people mistake the difficulty for, oh, I'm so distracted. I just can't seem to get rid of my thoughts. That's the wrong kind of creation of difficulty. rather you can tell yourself maybe, well, now for the first time in my life, it becomes obvious to me how hard it is to relax, how unrelaxed the mind is. So you become aware of this. This is a first step. You become aware of the addiction to noise. And then slowly, slowly we are showing our mind, now look over there, this is silence. Enjoy it for a little while. And so the mind kind of dips into silence. I'm rather going back to my noise. So it cannot really enjoy the silence in the beginning because it doesn't have experience of it. It doesn't know it just yet. So of course at first then you have to teach your mind how to walk, how to approach this silence, how to make friends with it, and then how to rest into it. And for that we need patience, we need a lot of kindness, and a lot of determination also. Consistency in practice also. Good friends around you also. All of that is part of the first training, sila. Now we see these three trainings as completely interdependent. They are nourishing each other. Samatha nourishes Vipassana, Vipassana nourishes Samatha. However, there is the possibility of you just practicing Samatha. It is not the case that by just practicing Samatha you will understand ultimate reality. This is not the case. You can just practice Samatha and feel very blissful and for a little while just completely block out the world. It's an incredibly powerful experience. So for most people, they are happy with that. They don't want anything else. They don't want to go further. They kind of get frozen in these states. But for us, that is not the concern at all. I want to say that with clarity right now. The concern that we get stuck in Samatha, this is, some people mention that, is kind of fairly ridiculous, for most people have not accomplished Samatha at all. It's a very difficult thing to have accomplished. So worrying about things that we have not accomplished doesn't make any sense. The Buddha has clearly advised that this is the way to enjoy yourself, in fact. Samatha practice is a way to rest. It was the Buddha's resting place, putting the mind to rest, completely putting the body to rest, letting go of everything completely, resting in this blissful abiding of samadhi. That's the Buddha's resting place, and he highly recommended it. This is the pleasure which is absolutely legit. You should chase it, you should go for it, you should practice it a lot. Enjoy yourself in the silence of your own heart. The best thing ever. Now once you have this ability, then Vipassana practice is incredibly empowered. Then you go deep into Vipassana. Now Vipassana is not some sort of different technique. There are these 10-day courses. They're very popular. Most people know these 10-day courses. They say, well, I've done this 10-day Vipassana course. There is this misunderstanding that these courses are kind of propagating some sort of different technique. And then there are other retreats which are, again, propagating another technique. And then we are wondering, are they to be combined? Can I practice them together, etc.? Like Ophélie mentions here. Can I practice them together? Is it proper? And so forth. Whenever you are practicing Samatha, whenever you are calming your mind, whenever you are abandoning unwholesome conduct and cultivate wholesome conduct, and whenever you're cultivating insight into the way things are, when you're nourishing pure awareness, that way you're practicing correctly. Whenever you're noticing the three characteristics of existence, impermanence, unsatisfactoriness, and not self, You're practicing Vipassana. You're noticing directly the way things are. Samatha just empowers the mind. So a nice simile that is sometimes given is a simile of putting a camera on a tripod. If you want to make a photo of someone, you need to have a good camera. Let's say you have a moving object in front of you. You want to make a picture of someone doing sports. Now when you make that picture, you want to put your camera on a tripod first of all, creating some stability. And then you have also a very good camera to make that picture. So having a good camera, a good photographer, and a good tripod. The tripod here stands for the Samatha practice, having a stabilized mind. Stabilizing the lens. The lens, the clear seeing, is the Vipassana practice, you can say. So you put the camera on the stability of Samatha practice. You can also say the camera lens is metta, it is friendliness, it is kindness. The photographer who makes the picture is Vipassana, and the tripod is Samatha. So looking through the lens of kindness and compassion, you're making a stable shot of the way things are. To show the practice in a bit of more of a stage-like development. Kind, compassionate, looking at yourself, looking at your mind with a calm, composed mental state. That's the three trainings. This is how the Buddha has taught. These three trainings. They are to be combined, practiced together. So I hope that clarified a little bit the question that Ophelia had. Two facets of the same process. I don't really understand what it really means in terms of practice. Yes, well, I think that has clarified it. Stabilize the mind, empower the knower. This is Samatha. Use the stabilized mind to understand how suffering arises and how it passes. This is Vipassana. To summarize today's teachings. Are there any questions? Okay? Then have a wonderful weekend. Be well. And next week there is no...